and then I told her, "Oh, hi.
Hey, and welcome to Bro. You good?
This is a podcast about two 20-somethings talking about anything and everything." I'm Eric, and
I'm
Jeff. Wait, we messed it up.
Welcome.
Welcome. So if you haven't noticed, these are not your two original hosts. We're a little different.
These are your two sweetheart editors.
Yeah, we took care of them. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
You won't be hearing from them
For a hot minute.
Yeah.
You're going to hear us yapping for like the next 20 minutes, if that's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So what do you want to talk about today, bro? A little bit of anything and everything, maybe?
Dude, if that's okay, there's a couple things that I wanted to tackle. One of them is honestly like the top 100 list for music.
Oh,
you like music, right?
Dude, the Apple. Oh my God. So controversial.
Really?
But so good.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, like,
some
what
really
are your
good-
key takeaways?
Key takeaways are there were some snubs. And there's also some questionable picks on there. I mean, having Taylor Swift on there at all, let alone as high as they did. I mean, controversial, you know. I know it's influential, but I don't know. What about you?
Dude, there were some misses, obviously. I think not having a couple of like Kendrick's albums, at least To Pimp a Butterfly.
Yes,
Good
that
Kid, Mad
should have
City
been
was
on there.
Obviously amazing, and I feel like it opened up so many different outlets for other artists, especially within that time frame.
100%.
But To Pimp a Butterfly, dude, that had so much influence.
Oh my
within our
God,
culture,
yeah,
within like
it's so
political
good.
structure. It was insane.
It's just a front to back listen, banger after banger.
Straight up.
Did you personally like find any new music from this?
There's a couple things that I wanted to like kind of look at. I know Radiohead has been so big for such a long time.
Yes.
And I was always kind of reluctant to listen to it because it just wasn't in the genre space that I was looking at. But I had to look at it.
Yeah.
So,
dude, yeah, Radiohead's really interesting because I also kind of am in the same boat where every time I see it, I'm like, I should listen to it, you know? But sometimes it just gets a little bit, it just like, I get it. Okay. It's good, right? I'm supposed to love it. But that kind of makes me like almost want to not listen to it for some reason.
Because it's so mainstream, you're just like, nah, bro, I'm indie.
It's like, that's the quintessential best
I want
artist of all
underground
time.
like Mac DeMarco, you know?
Yeah, man, give me something a little bit, you know, bad.
More zesty, yeah.
Give me some flaws.
Yeah,
I
dude.
don't want my music to be perfect.
I feel like there was like a couple genres that were also underappreciated.
Dude.
Like, I'm not a big country person. There's one country like
Just
artist
one,
that was on
one
there.
is crazy. Casey Musgraves.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Taylor Swift was country when she started, though, so you can kind of argue.
Oh, okay, good for her. I'm proud of her. Yeah. I use
No, I'm
Swifties.
I'm just kidding. No, but electronic music, very underrepresented.
True.
I would have put an Aphex Twin album on there personally. Probably Richard James LP or Selected Ambient Works, but they did have Burial, which is one of that Untrue album, Burial. That's one of my favorite electronic music albums of all time. I think without that album, dubstep wouldn't even exist as a genre.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I don't know how topical this is for the listeners of this podcast, but
I mean, I think the beauty of music is it's a universal language. So no matter who you are, where you're in, that space is something where you can kind of just unplug, unwind, and then really connect with someone.
Totally.
So I feel like this is just a way of like starting that conversation.
I agree.
So like one of the things that I think maybe even Apple realized was that they couldn't captivate an audience the way that Spotify did for the end of the year Wrapped because they had such a vice grip on that.
Yeah.
So this is where they started that discussion where they're like, all right, this is mid-year. We have a bunch of albums. We have a bunch of different curators. And whether you like that top 100 or not, it starts a discussion.
That's
and it
true.
helps people like kind of find new artists. Because even for me, where I feel like I have like a decent taste in music, it opened up so many different things and I got so humbled.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I know we're yapping about this a little bit too much, so we could kind of go into like the health aspect of just dating a therapist.
Oh yeah, dating a therapist. What is it like? Segue to be dating a therapist. As you guys might know, we are the partners of the two lovely hosts of this podcast. And yeah, we've actually both been with them like the same amount of time.
Like what, 7-8 years almost?
Yeah, I think it's coming up
Almost
on
8
years like this year.
Yeah.
And I think we're both in like sorry to kind of, blow smoke up our asses, but we're kind of in healthy relationships.
I think so. I think so. Thanks to our lovely therapist girlies.
Yeah, seriously.
Fostering healthy communication.
And I'd say that's kind of, the healthy communication. That's kind of like the number one, like, best thing is that they kind of have had to make themselves more emotionally available, or available to talk about certain things than like a lot of relationships are, where like, because they're always talking about these just in their client situations and maybe in supervision, friends, during school, it kind of makes it so that conversations between me and Ayesha just become a lot more like, deep, because she has a very strong understanding of how kind of dynamics in relationships work, so that like, I feel like makes like our arguments less like toxic and a little bit more like productive.
It opens up a lot of different pathways, right?
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of kind of like traps you might fall into when you're in a relationship where you feel like you've gotten so comfortable that you can like maybe like potentially explode on that partner, have different like outlets of kind of throwing out whatever that situation may be. So this kind of gives you the ability to take a breath, sit down with each other and really talk about how you're feeling. So I feel like I've gotten that through Abeera too. Yeah. It really lets me kind of express myself in a different aspect.
Yeah. And I don't know if you feel like this, but I know we both had like kind of more minor relationships in the past, like before them. Like this was like my very first like serious relationship. But like, I feel like not only do we kind of have like probably healthier communication in times of like stress and stuff, but she also like indirectly kind of holds up a mirror to myself. And so like, if I ever feel like I'm kind of having like bad behaviors or whatever, it's because I'm like with her and I can kind of see that more clearly. And like, because the way that she talks about just the situations of her clients and stuff, and it just runs through all these different dynamics and like paths that people can go down. I don't know. I just feel like I look at myself with like a sharper lens to like kind of analyze my own behavior because of it.
Yeah, I feel like it also kind of like lets you take a step back and be like, oh, there's so many people going through so many different situations that you couldn't even conceive yourself.
Totally.
Given whatever hypotheticals they'll give us in situations that they're kind of dealing with. I feel like it also, huge shout out to therapists, by the way, because there's so many different walks of life that you're speaking to that it's hard to come back home and find a time to decompress. And during that time of decompressing, there's so many things that you're worried about. It's hard to keep like that mindful effort of communicating with your partner. So that's like a whole other thing that we could kind of talk about, but I feel like that isn't shouted up enough.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the kind of all the dynamics at play and communication between humans is just mind-boggling, know? Like personalities really just create like just such crazy combinations with each other.
Whether it's social, it's environmental, the people you've talked to, all of those are such crazy factors that really shape who you are. And we don't even know, like, honestly, like always the hypotheticals that I would use is just like, if someone walked their entire life and they open doors for someone and that person has never received like a door opening for them or vice versa, they don't know whether to say thank you. So it's just like having those learned experiences and being able to share those. But like you opened a door for someone, they don't say thanks. You're like all pissed off. You're like, what the fuck, dude? Oh, am I allowed to cuss? I keep forgetting. But it's those learned situations that really shape who you are. So I think having that scope when they're having like those conversations with their clients is also really such a pivotal thing for them and the way that they share those experiences. So yeah.
Totally. I agree. And now that I've summoned a cat,
there she is.
And also we've caused the room to be brighter with our radiant smiles. We would like to actually knock down these lovely therapists a few pegs because we've just been blowing smoke up their booties now. And I think that they might fly away. So what are some of the negative or more not so fun things about being with a therapist?
I mean, one of the things I feel like we could talk about is almost feeling like it's an over healthy communication, over stressing about how we should word certain things, the way that we should present ourselves. I feel like that's like one of the key things that typically come into this, because you want to be so mindful of how you're approaching the conversation.
Yes.
That sometimes you overthink it.
Yeah. I sometimes feel like in arguments, like if I,
it's like a losing battle.
Yeah. If I say something in a certain way or whatever, like I can just get like domed with like knowledge and jargon and be like, you're doing this right now, you're using this strategy. And I'm like, oh no. Like I feel like there's no pass like that I can really take.
Like yeah, no, and
they're blocking every exit. Or sorry, I'm not trying to speak for Abeera too. But I mean, like, I would like respect that, obviously, like win your battles or whatever. But
so talking about going in with the mindset where you're having such a heated conversation about whatever the topic might be, whatever grievances you're trying to share, it almost feels like you're being invalidated in like a really weird way, because you might not have the lingo to kind of carry that conversation.
Yeah.
And they come in with so much confidence and such a strong structure of how something might look or how we should be talking about a certain
They have conversations for a living.
Yeah.
You know? So they have to be like good at it. And they're just naturally going to be better than us.
Yeah. And you're like, oh my God, no, this is so, like, I'm so right about this. This is what I'm going to be doing. And then all of a sudden they come into the conversation with so many different valid points where you feel like, oh shit, maybe I'm overreacting. Yeah. It's like an unintentional gaslight, even though it's not like that as the intention.
Yeah. And sometimes you feel like you don't have the like weapons in your arsenal, or I shouldn't call them weapons. I shouldn't call them weapons.
I get what you mean though, right? Like the toolkit or like the right verbiage where you can kind of really express yourself. And that's where all those filler words really come into play.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah.
And sometimes also like, you know, just having to be like, it's hard for them to be emotionally available sometimes because they have spent so much of their emotional battery throughout the day.
That's very true.
You know, at work.
It's a lot, dude.
Yeah, seriously.
Like a single 45-minute conversation where you have to be on point. With that client. If you are dropping the ball or like even like spacing out for like half a second, you're missing out on so much valuable information, and you could potentially give that person wrong information, or maybe like highlight moments that you really should be like, hey, let's take a step back, let's like explore this a little bit deeper. And then they're having like 4 to 5 clients a day. Like that's a lot of work.
And sometimes it seems like the whole purpose of therapy for some of these people is they just collect all of the bad things that happen to them throughout the week in like a big bag, and they just like dump it on top of the table, and then they're like, okay, that's yours now, see you later.
And then sometimes they're like 3 times or like 4 times in a single week. They're like, all right, bro, I'll see you tomorrow. Like, oh, that's great. Okay, cool.
And then I mean, I think that's like the hardest part, and like a skill that like I feel like therapists spend like a whole career trying to learn is like not carrying all of that like with them. You know?
There's so many inherent biases that they have to face too, where it's just like you're having conversations within like your own culture, and you're seeing a lot of these like similarities that you're focused on, and there's like so much what's called like countertransference, and thank you for both teaching me that. And just like seeing those similarities and then freaking out and not showing that to the client, because then that shows like implicit biases that can really affect the way that you navigate these conversations. So you have to be so mindful about fostering healthy communication with these with whoever you're seeing, right? Because you want them to leave a better version of themselves. And that doesn't necessarily translate sometimes, because I've seen like horror stories when I was getting my AA in psychology of like horrible situations where they would reinforce horrible behaviors. And that would in turn make that person either not want to go to therapy anymore or become a worse version of themselves, which is like the exact like
getting like bad behavior like reinforced is terrible. It's so crazy,
dude. Huge shout out to them. I don't know how they do this on a weekly basis.
Modern
I don't know how they
day
do this
warriors.
podcast on a weekly basis. I'm sweating. So
I'm sorry. I turned up the AC before we started. Gav likes it cold.
I like a brisk sis.
He likes
60.
it brisky. But I'm sorry.
No,
now
bro,
you're sweating.
so
You're paying the consequences.
It's fine, bro.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like the girls do this a little bit better than us. So maybe we should pass the torch.
Yeah, well, we might see you later.
Who knows? I mean, let us know if you guys would like to hear our voices, maybe not in the background every once in a while.
we are yappers. So
yeah, so careful what you wish for. I'm like looking at the whiteboard like it's the camera. This whole time I'm like talking to the whiteboard.
I'm afraid of making eye contact. You guys are scary as fuck.
That camera is like, staring me down, man. Yo.
Anyways.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, okay. Whatever, bye.
Okay, guys, show us how it's done.
Yeah.
Hey, and welcome back to The Actual Girl, Are You Okay?
This is a podcast about two 20-something-year-old girls living in Los Angeles talking about anything and everything.
Did you like our little finale surprise? Or was it horrible?
I want to say it was so
We'll
fun
put a poll.
being behind the scenes.
I was having fun too, but I was also so stressed out.
I was like kind of tense, but I got to play the role of audio engineer.
Yeah.
And that was fun.
Yeah. No. And I stood behind the camera.
Cameraman.
But I will say my partner does do more than that. He like kind of takes care of like the timestamps and things like that. And I was not able to multitask because I don't know if I've said it before, but I can't do two things at once.
Yeah.
So
that was so fun. Okay. Well, welcome to our season finale.
yes. And we are going to continue off of the topic that the boys were talking about. They were discussing their point of views on dating a therapist, but we're going to give you our little insight as to what it's like being a therapist.
It was really interesting hearing what they had to say because I think I was really surprised as to how much they got right about the experience.
They listen.
They were listening to us.
They care.
Our vent sessions actually mean something.
Oh my gosh, they don't just like block us out.
Okay, so being a therapist.
Yeah, so I think let's first give a little intro.
Yeah.
Me and Ayesha, we maybe have said it before, but if you aren't listening to our podcast regularly, first of all, what are you doing? Second of all, we met at Pepperdine University in our master's program for clinical psychology, emphasis in marriage and family therapy. It's long.
A mouthful.
Yeah. And we went through 2 years for that program.
Mm-hmm.
And we came out of it best of friends. And we're 2 years out now, which is insanity.
I know. Actually, it's so funny because earlier today I was wearing my graduation dress.
Oh, yeah.
And I haven't worn it since graduation.
That's 2 years.
That's crazy to me.
So meaning in these past 2 years, Ayesha and I have now gone from being a trainee marriage and family therapist, which is when you are still a student in the program, and we are associates now. Do we want to give some insight as to like what that is?
I can like give a quick preview. So once you're an associate, you're accruing hours towards licensure. And so once you complete your hours, you take a licensing exam and hopefully pass and become a licensed official therapist.
Yeah. So that's where we're at. I think we're hoping to be getting into that process sometime later this year or early next year-ish.
Yeah.
It varies for everybody because it depends where you end up working and how many hours you get.
There's so much that goes into it. So let us know if you would like a future episode where we kind of talk more about the process.
Yeah, and maybe we even just do a bonus episode for the people who do care.
Yeah. Because there's so much to know and it can get a little complicated, and we're so down to kind of explain it all.
Yeah. I think our main, or at least for me, my main focus for this episode was kind of coming from a selfish place of me being so interested in other people's professions and something random that maybe I've never even considered wanting to do, but just so curious as to what their process was like, what their day-to-day and week-to-week life is like.
Yeah.
I love those videos on TikTok,
like day in the
lives of nurses or people who work at a 9-to-5 corporate job and
or more creative industries, like those clothing brands.
I
just love watching those because it's this is where we shoot. We have our photo shoots and this is our marketing team. And I'm like,
there's one girl. I have two actually. I'm so sorry. There's one girl that I love watching who does the displays at Anthropologie.
Okay, yeah.
And it's all art. She's just doing DIY all day.
And it's the window displays.
Yes.
You said that, right?
Yeah, no, okay. I said displays, but yes, window displays. Yeah.
And it's so interesting because I'm like, oh my God, sometimes I wish I could do that.
And then similarly, there is a job at Trader Joe's for their signs.
Yeah. Like how fun.
How fun.
And let us know if you guys have ever been like, I wonder what it's like to be a therapist.
Yeah.
You know, or
and if that's the case, then you're listening to the right episode.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And
Cutting you off.
I feel like what I was about to say is I think some people, and not to like invalidate this, but I think there's a lot of people who aren't therapists who may feel like one in their day-to-day lives, like being there for their friends or their families. I think a lot of active working therapists became therapists because at some point they were that supportive friend or family member.
The mom of the group or like whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
So we just chose to make money doing what we do.
Kind of. As of right now.
Yeah.
Which we'll maybe get into. So that's kind of like where we're at right now. Maybe we get into like our day to day a little bit first.
Yeah.
We both work in like a private practice-y type of situation. So keep in mind that this is just more personal to that.
Yeah.
And even within that, I think our days look different. So do you want to give like a quick rundown of your week?
My week. So I have clients that I schedule like on various days of the week, and in many ways that does give me a good amount of flexibility because I don't have a traditional, or we don't have a traditional 9 to 5 where we have a set schedule every day. Even on top of that, like my clients typically have the same time every week, but a lot of times what happens is people either cancel or need to reschedule. And so there is like a lot of movement in my week. It's not every week does not look the same.
Totally.
And just speaking briefly on the financial end of that can sometimes be a little scary because...
say your thing.
A lot of times I feel like I'm a sugar baby to my clients because in many ways we both are very dependent on if our clients don't see us that week, we don't get paid, you know? And so when somebody cancels, like I obviously always understand, but at the same time, there's a little bit of like, oh my God.
Yeah, like, will I make rent this month?
Yeah, you know, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's like a misconception because licensed therapists like are known to be like perhaps or like assumed to be rather like more financially stable and like maybe in some cases like making bank, right? Like, but that's definitely not the case, especially as an associate.
Which I want to also add on that note that we don't make the full session fee. So whatever you're paying us, if you know you're seeing an associate therapist, they're not actually taking home the entire amount that you're paying them.
Yeah. Yeah. We're making, usually it's like between 30 to like 50%.
50% if you're like lucky.
If you're lucky. And maybe you'll miss out on like some other benefits if that's the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ouija is loving up against Ayesha right now. So
I love that for me.
But yeah, okay. Anything else to add to your week to week?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just seeing clients. I think there needs to be time set aside for some admin type work, which I think is a little bit of like the behind the scenes of being a therapist. Yeah. It's not just sitting with the clients. It's also kind of maybe doing some research on something someone's bringing in, or my least favorite part, writing notes, which is essentially the clinical documentation of every single session that we do.
Yep. Yeah. I would say like, as you're describing it, my week to week looks very similar.
Yeah.
With the exception, which I think, I don't even know if you touched on this and I completely blanked out, but, going to the office versus working from home.
Yeah. I work like a hybrid schedule. Like on some days I go in person, on some days I go virtual or stay virtual. I think right now I'm in like my virtual girl era because a lot of my clients with summer and just traveling, it's just easier to do virtual right now, but I do love going in person.
Yeah. Do you have a preference?
Ooh, I love like feeling like I'm getting ready and I'm going to the office, and I work in a really pretty area and I park in like this cute neighborhood. So I just love the kind of routine that going into the office gives me. But it's really great to have the, again, flexibility that working from home gives me, you know? Because then again, I can be anywhere. I live in, like my family lives in Orlando, so I can go home and still see clients virtually, which is really great.
I love that rule where it's like, but therapists can be wherever as long as their clients are in the state that they're licensed in. Like that's fine. But then as soon as your client moves, like that's sad, right? Because then you have to stop seeing them, which it has its reasons. But anyway, it's still kind of sad and maybe a little hypocritical in some ways.
I know.
But it's not our rule, so don't get mad at us. I also I think I prefer in person, but ever since I've moved out of my parents' home, I'm much farther away from the office than I used to be. So it's gotten a little bit not hard. I mean, hard, like just driving back and forth. And then it's sometimes just like nice to like use your like free hours in between clients to like just get some housework done or like whatever, even if it's just sitting on the couch versus sitting in a therapy room just like on TikTok or whatever.
Because then you kind of have to like, I know when I'm home and I have time between clients, I can be a little bit more productive and actually get things done. If I'm at the office, I notice I kind of just like
dilly-dally.
Yeah. I end up FaceTiming somebody when I could be doing notes because I'm actively just distracting myself. Yeah. Instead of being like, shoot, like maybe I should start like sending these emails or doing whatever.
Right. Yeah. But I would say like going back to like the week by week or day to day, whatever. Mine looks pretty similar. I was going to add that I don't work Fridays because I think that's a big perk of being a therapist is like, that is part of like choosing your schedule. Like I know people in my office see people on Fridays and Saturdays. So that way they can have a couple weekdays off.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, great for you.
Yeah.
I, however, will not be doing that. But that's because maybe they want to see more kids and like they know on Saturdays they could see kids in the mornings, right?
Totally.
But yeah.
So in many ways, like even though we have a boss, like we also are our own bosses because we set our schedule.
And we get to like make time. Like I make time to like go and work out in the morning if I can. I mean, it's gotten a little hard, but like, and also I think it's hard too when like you take on a new client and maybe their schedule doesn't match yours and you do find yourself making exceptions that maybe taps into your self-care. Like I've definitely had to like stop going and working out some days because I had to accommodate somebody.
Yeah. And that comes into kind of therapeutic boundaries to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Like sometimes
we're still trying to figure out.
Yeah. Like I know when we first started, you know, if I got a text from a client or a client was calling me, I remember like freaking out a little bit, like, oh my God, like, why are they calling me? Is something wrong? And now I'm at this place where like, I mean, obviously like an emergency is a different case, but like if I'm available, I'm available. But if I'm not, I'm not. Cause I'm not on the clock 24/7.
Yeah.
So to speak, you know,
which that's blurry, right? Because like with maybe a more corporate job, it's like, okay, I know my hours are this.
Yeah.
I can close my laptop and be done.
Yeah.
I get texts like into the night sometimes and it's not urgent, but like I will still see it and I will be inclined to read it.
Yeah.
And instantly right there, my brain's going to work.
Right. Like I have this like little rule for myself where I won't respond to emails after my last session of the day, which usually is at 7:00. So I finish at 8. And after 8, I'm like, oh, like sometimes like, oh, if it's a quick email, I'm like, fine. But typically I'm like, I'm done for the day. I can respond to this tomorrow. You know, this could wait till next week, you know, depending again on what it is and the urgency around it.
Yeah.
But, you know, that being said, you know, can we get more into what it was like at the very start, AKA first client session, unless there was something else you wanted to say?
No, I feel like I'd be kind of repeating what you said about my day-to-day because it's pretty similar.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out how I can like condense it, but like we'll just say that I have a very similar day-to-day to Ayesha with the exception of maybe like how often we go into the office and like what days we like work and stuff. Like those things will vary, but yeah, cool. Yeah, let's go into the first sessions that we ever
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
I remember like this was also during COVID.
Oh, that is something I wanted to bring up briefly is like I don't want to say COVID therapists, but we started our therapy journey
in 2020.
Where everything was online. And so we started doing therapy only online. So I almost want to quickly ask, what was that adjustment like for you to switch from only seeing clients virtually to start seeing some in person?
I was scared, but like after the first time I did it, I was like, wait, this is so much better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think that there's just something like less formal about being in person. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I know what you're talking about. It feels a little bit more organic.
Yeah.
And I by no means want to discount virtual therapy at all. I think I
do virtual therapy.
Yeah. I think virtual therapy can be just as fruitful, productive, whatever word you want to use, just as impactful, even on me, right? I think the difference is the kind of the flow of the conversation can feel very different when you're sitting in front of somebody in the same room.
Like I will not interrupt, but like I will be able to like throw in like little statements and stuff versus when you're online, like you're scared of interrupting.
Yes. Online, it kind of feels like you speak, I respond. I say something, you say something. It feels more transactional in that way in terms of flow of the dialogue. A lot of times, like especially tech issues are a thing.
Oh my gosh.
Lagging,
Yes.
It's so hard when I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry, but you're cutting out a little bit.
Yeah.
It is just so disruptive.
It is. It really is. Agreed. And like, I also just like the rapport that comes with being in person, kind of like how you said, it's more organic, but like with that, like even just like when you're like walking them out, like sometimes like the session's over. So I'll make comments of like, oh my God, I love your outfit.
Yeah.
Right. Or like something like
do you have any
that.
plans this weekend?
Yeah. Or like, I know like some of my clients read books. I'm like, what are you reading right now? Like, it'll just be like a quick little thing that as I'm walking them out and it adds.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't get that when you're online because at that point, like maybe like the session's over and you're like, okay, see you next week.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Especially when like you have somebody right after them.
Yes.
And we're gonna get into that.
That's another point. But I remember for the first session.
Yeah, sorry for that.
No, that was important. I remember like I first of all showed up in a blazer. ? And the only reason I'm saying that is because today I fully wear like a sweatshirt crew neck.
Yeah.
And our co-producers squeezing a plastic bag and it's so loud. Okay, great. It's not picking up on the mic. Okay. What was I saying?
First session.
So I wore a blazer the first time and nowadays I wear funky socks and sweatshirts and like it's just such a shift in how I show up in the room.
I feel like Abeera embodies like cool therapist energy.
Oh, please.
No, I'm being so for real. Like I really admire.
Well, I'm sure you do too, Miss Fashionable.
You're Miss Fashionable.
Oh my gosh.
I like the way
Let's
you
just
put
compliment each other all
outfits
podcast
together. And like, I think you go the extra mile in a way I don't in terms of like adding socks. Like you,
I just said that was the icing on the cake. But you accessorize.
Thank you. I just don't have as many cool socks as you do.
Oh yeah, I gave Ayesha my socks
I'm
today.
wearing Abeera socks.
Oh, we should talk about that.
Oh my God, should we get into that?
Really quick. Ayesha was like this close, like, and by this close, I'm holding my fingers up. It's like a smidgen. She was this close to maybe adopting a dwarf bunny.
Okay, so yesterday I was on my hot girl walk and I come across a sign in my neighborhood that says free dwarf bunny, free cage, free food, call this number or text this number. And I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? Immediately text Abeera, of course, duh.
All caps. She goes, Abeera. I thought she was dying.
I was dying of like excitement. And I spent the last 24 hours deliberating, like, do I want this dwarf bunny? And I'm like Googling photos, like researching what it takes.
And then the therapist in me is like, you should text them and inquire so you have all the facts before you start feeling anxious about this thing.
I know, like literally got so delulu about it. And I mean, long story short, I got so excited about this. Finally, Abeera texted the lady for me, only to find out that, I know, right? Only to find out that the bunny has already been rehomed. And I'm like kind of sad about it.
And I told Ayesha that that's kind of like the coin flip moment where it's like, now you know.
Now I know how I feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
So TBD.
A second podcast pet, question mark?
Like, how cute with a little bunny hopping around. I'm telling you, these bunnies, like according to Google, weigh 1.5 to 2.5 pounds. And
that's just nothing.
Google dwarf bunny right now.
Well,
and
I'll attach a picture.
Yeah, look at the picture above. And
or below.
I'm just grieving. And so to clarify,
our socks.
The socks Abeera selected for me
they're my Easter socks.
Have bunnies on them.
Yeah, they're little bunnies, and they say "working out my buns,"
which is hilarious.
Or working on my buns, whatever. Tangent. Okay, how was your first session that you had?
Oh my God, I had so much crippling anxiety leading up to my first session, and I think there was a lot of anticipation around it because I waited a decent amount. I didn't wait intentionally. I think where I was working, they kind of train you a little bit before they assign you your first client. Whereas with you,
oh my God, we were thrown into it.
You started a lot sooner than I did, right? Like you were assigned your first client.
Within 1 month of being like employed, we had our first client session.
Where I didn't have my first client until February.
That's not far off.
It wasn't too far off.
We were a month within each other.
But still, like I was just sitting there waiting like, oh my God. And yeah, I went into it being like, I don't know. Like, how do you do therapy?
Yeah.
Like you do
the imposter syndrome.
Like, what are you supposed to say? Right, Ouija? Ouija has thoughts.
But yeah, no, it was like the scariest thing. And I remember like, again, like the imposter syndrome, like leaving that session being like, did I do anything? I think that happened for the first like 6 months, honestly, where I'm like, am I helping this person?
Yeah, totally. And like, I also think the kind of the jarring moment of like, you're on Zoom or whatever platform, and then you're just waiting for the person to essentially like pop up.
Oh my gosh.
You've never seen before. Oh my God, it was so scary. And there was also this other component that freaked me out, and only until like the last year or so, all of my clients had always been older than me.
Oh yeah, I was gonna actually bring that up. Yeah, okay.
So I want to hear like, how do you feel about that? Like, especially like,
I was terrified of that because, and I actually, I think I've talked it out enough to like have like pros and cons, but like, I was always fearful that like, okay, if I have like someone like, let's say in their 40s, right? Like they're going to look at me, someone who's like in their 20s thinking like, what does this person know? They've barely lived.
Right. Like actually it's so funny you say that because my fear was like, I'm going to have somebody who is like in their 40s, is going through a divorce.
Yeah.
And is going to be like, what do you know? And
which is like similar to like, I was actually talking to a coworker about this, where like we were talking about couples therapy, and it's like, if you're single and you've only ever been single, like, at least for like a while or whatever, like, not that you're not going to be a good couples therapist, but like, I know I pull from like things in my relationship sometimes to at least practice empathy
and to identify with them to a certain extent.
So it's like one of those things. So it's like, yeah, maybe if you are in different like parts of life, like maybe that is going to be a little bit disconnected.
Yeah, totally. And I think at this point in my journey, I've gotten to a point where if somebody ever were to say to me like, oh, you're 20 something, like, what do you know? I would be like, you know what?
True.
You're right. Yeah. And I want to know what your experience is. And I don't want to come in with the assumptions I may have had I been in my 40s going through a divorce myself. Right. So I think it leads to so much more curiosity and maybe a little bit more like objectiveness around it, where I'm not too influenced by my own life.
Yes.
To a certain extent.
Yes.
Where, you know, I think all clients bring up like reactions in me, you know, either they're like similar in age to me and culture, and there's certain parts of their experience that really hit home. Or
as Gev said,
exactly,
countertransference,
you know, and there's also, what's the other version of that?
Transference?
Yeah. I'm like, yeah.
Literally just minus the counter.
So there's transference too, which I don't know if you want to.
Transference is basically how the client feels about us and how like that's maybe showing up in the space, right?
Yeah.
And affecting the rapport.
Exactly. Like, I think there's a world in which like your therapist maybe reminds you of your mom.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's like the way they look, their mannerisms, even the way they smell. Even can
it
show
could be
up.
anything. Yeah.
And that can really kind of
Impact your therapy.
experience, your relationship to them. So I think therapy is such a fascinating just experience.
Totally.
There's just so much that happens in the room.
Yeah. And I feel like I learned so much, not so much more, but like just being in this space versus being in school learning about the things. Like,
there's a reason why we had to start seeing clients while we were still learning about everything, which I think one of the most jarring things about being in grad school to be a therapist is the fact that we started interviewing for therapy jobs 1 month into our program.
Isn't that crazy?
Like, that was
the Hunger Games, you guys.
Oh, right. Because when Abeera and I were doing this, COVID was fully a thing, and it
was also the election.
That was a year, you guys.
Like, I just want everyone to know it was COVID. We all thought we were going to die. And we also thought we were going to die in a political state.
It was just so tense. And then we're going through such a huge life change, starting grad school.
And then everyone's competing for these same positions in our cohort, which is only like 23 people.
Like,
so
imagine
we were all like friends competing for the same things against each other.
That was such a and it's like people you've just met, you're still getting to know. And now all of a sudden you're kind of having to be a little bit like,
and like people were like calling people out for being like gatekeepy, and like I was like, oh my God.
I remember feeling so badly with one of our not badly, but kind of just conscious with one of our interactions, because we were both interviewing at the same place, and Abeera had her interview before mine. And part of me was like, oh, like I really want to ask her like how it went, but I also don't want her to think like I'm trying to like get inside info from her in a way that wasn't fair. I just was really like scared for the interview and wanted to get some like
reassurance.
Yeah. And I remember really being conscious of that.
I would have probably, if you had asked me, I'd be like, oh gosh, she's like literally just trying to gun for my job. Like, but funny enough, I didn't get it. And then I should, and that's on karma.
No, but I also was worried because I think I've nodded to this in a previous episode, but like on paper, Abeera and I are relatively similar. Would you disagree?
No, I just always go back to people like probably think we're the same person.
No, because like, both of our names start with A, for one. Not that that means anything, but it doesn't help, probably.
Well, yeah, because if we're both brown, we're both like the same like religion and like cultural background and like same profession. And
then I know you majored...
Same chart almost.
And you majored in
gender studies.
And I minored in women and gender studies. So I just feel like there's just so much overlap just looking at our resume even.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I was definitely like a little paranoid of like, oh no, like Abeera in some way is my direct competition. And I hated that so much.
So we just joined forces and made a podcast.
Yeah. No big deal.
No, but yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that. But what was the next thing we wanted to maybe discuss?
I mean, I feel like there's a couple different ways we could go.
I really want us to talk about something unrelated to us, but more so in a generic way, which is like, what are the assumptions that people place on therapists? And can we debunk it real quick?
Please.
I don't know if we have too much time to talk about it, but at least we can kind of go through the list and like, kind of figure it out. So let's do that.
Okay, the first one is that therapists have the best mental health and that we totally have our lives together. Like,
spit take.
My God, are you freaking kidding me? I wish.
I think it helps knowing things because like I think I'm self-aware. Do I do anything about it? No.
There's a huge difference between maybe knowing what would be good for you and actually like...
Do you practice what you preach?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Hell no.
Do you have your life together?
No.
Yeah.
Hi,
that answers that.
No, it's
straight from the source.
It's just like not that easy to actually like take, not that we give advice, but it's not so easy to actually apply the tools that we would be giving you guys in our own lives.
Dude, my partner will sometimes be like reality check me in that way, and I get mad.
it's just like sometimes we need to be irrational and a little delulu too. You guys.
Yeah, and then I voice like, I just need to like vent about this real quick. Like, just let me have this moment. But just nodding to the fact that like I definitely don't take my own.
No, it's so
tools.
funny because sometimes I wonder like how my clients see me and if they could even see like what I was doing 5 minutes before our session started.
Do what you want with that information.
No,
let it be up to your own interpretation.
I mean, like an example being like where I work, the office is right across the street from a Taco Bell. Like I could throw a football to the Taco Bell's front door, which
Good
is
arm.
not always a great thing because sometimes I've fully gotten like myself some Taco Bell and I'm like shoving it down my throat and I have a client showing up in like 10 minutes and I'm like, it's not okay, you guys, but I'm like so hungry sometimes.
I think like what out of pocket things I do like before sessions. I don't know. I have to think about that.
Yeah.
Maybe later. What's the next one?
That therapists are loaded.
Well, we already talked about that. And the answer is
Nar. I wish.
Maybe one day. Actually, I said to Ayesha, I'm like, when are we going to get to the point where we can just like pick up a designer thing without thinking about it?
Pick up anything, honestly.
Can I get shampoo without being like, do I have money for this?
I go to the grocery store and I have to like think.
Yeah.
I'm like, do I need this or do I want this? That's actually so sad. Oh my
God. Yeah.
Therapists are always right and know what's best.
Oh, no.
Not true. I think both of us can agree that we really take the stance of the client is the expert of their own life.
It's giving humanistic.
And we won't always get it right. I actually personally, I mean, I will say at the beginning, I really hated this, but now I love it.
Being called out by your clients?
Being called out.
Oh.
And
I thought we were having a psychic moment again.
that would have been my secondary thing. I think when I get something wrong, like sometimes I'll like reflect something back or like, so blah, blah, blah. Like, how's that landing? Is like, or is that resonating? And they're like, well, actually, no, it's more like this. And I love when that happens because
it's clarification.
And it allows me to understand them on a deeper level as opposed to them just agreeing with me.
Yes.
You know?
Agreed.
And I think what you were saying too.
Similar. That was what I meant. Like, where it's like, no, like that's actually not right. Or like, I don't feel this way. Or that actually won't help me because I've tried it, blah, 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 blah.
And I think being called out used to make me feel like really like tense and freaked out. My heart would start beating. And now when I can hear it in their voice, I'm like, oh, bring it on. But happily.
Yes. Yeah. And like not in like a combative way.
Yeah. Please like tell me more. Like I feel like I'm actually being invited into their experience when they're having a reaction or a response. Like it allows me to understand them in a different way.
Advocate for yourself, people.
So we don't know what's best for you all the time. And it's up to you to sometimes help us gain some insight as to what works for you and what doesn't. Because we don't know everything about you. 50 minutes a week really is not that much time.
No, not at all. It goes by so quickly.
I know. And then there's therapists are professional / like how they are in the movies.
Yeah. And I think I wrote this one kind of keeping in mind that there's so many movies out there that like someone will go to their therapist or, whatever. And the therapist is like, they come in with their cardigan or their blazer and then they have their notepad and then sometimes they have like a timer.
Oh my God.
And then like the person comes in, like lays down on their couch and it's like, my life is over, like whatever. And it's like, I don't know. But like when I started grad school, I was like, I am going to go through this just to not become that therapist.
Yeah.
Like it's my goal not to be that.
Like, I feel like movies, cartoons, even comic strips really portray therapists to be very much like Sigmund Freud. Like your client is laying on the couch, just free associating every thought that's coming to mind. And the therapist is just like psychoanalyzing everything they said and is bringing up parents all the time. Like, tell us about like your mom.
Right.
And which like
sometimes it is
like, which isn't like fully off, but
But it's not always like that. Yeah.
That's not, yeah.
And then also hence my fun socks. Like I'm not going to be and if it's a cardigan, it's a fun cardigan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
So
that was more like, I think when I wrote that, why was I thinking more aesthetically? I was like, I'm not going to be the movie therapist.
I don't know if you remember, but one of our first Pepperdine professors showed us a video where there was a therapist and she was like, hey, this is an example of what to wear as a therapist. Do you remember that?
No.
And it was the ugliest
block it out?
outfit I've ever seen in my life.
What was it?
It was like, there was so much brown, but
do you think you can find it and we can post a picture of it?
I don't know. I think I'd have to still have access to our Pepperdine.
I wonder if you knew whose video, or where. Anyway, whatever.
And it was just like a really gaudy necklace and like a statement necklace.
But was it camp?
I mean, arguably maybe, but I hated it. I hated it, and I just don't want to dress like that.
Fair.
So
we're human, and we will show up into the room as a human. Anything else for the assumptions, or did we cover them?
I feel like we covered them. And just to go back to we have the best mental health. I feel like a lot of us pursue therapy.
Your therapist has a therapist.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And if your therapist doesn't, that's a little weird.
Yeah.
And
red flag.
I feel like grad school also helped me learn so much about myself, my own family dynamics. I think not last episode, but 2 episodes ago, we were talking about we learned about boundaries in grad school, about enmeshment. Just there's so many things that I was like, wow, I think I understand myself a little bit better after doing this.
No, I think I'm a completely different person, dare I say, after grad school because I was exposed to so many self-reflective topics.
Yeah. And I also will say this, sometimes my clients push me to be a healthier person in every way of that word. When I'm I want to be the therapist that takes care of themselves, that makes sure I'm getting physical.
Well, it's the oxygen mask thing where it's if you're taking care of yourself, you could probably be a better therapist.
And I think about my clients too, sometimes outside of session. I know certain clients that have maybe more difficult relationships and really having maybe my own relationship difficulties and being oh, wow, it makes me really appreciate and honor their experiences in a different way because I can recognize how hard it is to move about the world.
Yeah. But also nodding to the gratitude part too, where I think one of our co-producers said it earlier where it's it gives you perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
As to maybe, you do have some good going on in life too. If you I don't know, it just elevates that in some.
Yeah.
I kind of took it to the words, the positive. Is that toxic positivity? Maybe. Anyway.
And I don't know if we touched on this, but I feel sometimes, I think the boys talked about this where doing this job's a little bit exhausting and having clients lined up, on a particular day, having a couple people in a row or just, starting your day knowing, okay, I'm about to see 4 to 5 or however many people that day. It's kind of this bracing of yourself to a certain degree and being after the end of it, sometimes my brain feels so heavy.
The migraines I get
in my skull, it's inexplainable.
Yeah.
And it's hard because don't get me wrong, this job is so rewarding and I feel so and
it's fun. If I take a step back and I look from the outside in, I'm this is awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy to be here, but it doesn't take away from how difficult it is.
And every job is hard in its own way, right? And I think if I had to pick any, I'm going to use the word real job, traditional job maybe.
Okay.
I think if I had to pick a traditional job that comes on a list, right? I would still choose this one. It just is exhausting in its own way.
And that's why I can't wait to be licensed because then I feel we'll have even more flexibility in our schedule and we can also take on other things like supervising and other stuff to kind of stimulate your brain in other ways.
And I think that's why podcasting is also so much fun for me because it's it just adds something to my week that I can look forward to. And this kind of gives me that push to get through each week.
Yeah.
And I love being able to see you. And I love like during the week having our little meetings about the podcast. It just like brings so much into my life. So here's to having well-rounded.
And also like this is our season finale. And like maybe we just say like thank you to everyone who's listened. Like, I don't know, like that was just like such a cute like little moment. So I just want to add to it by like throwing that in there. Like we have had so much fun doing this and it's not going away.
Yeah.
We have season 2 coming. However, like this has been so surreal and like it's so crazy that like a little like brainchild of like mine from like I don't know, like a little Delulu moment.
I've actually, this is so crazy because I'm just having this like memory from not even that long ago, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It hasn't even been like 6 months.
Like I'm like, let me set the scene really quick. I'm sitting in my bed and it's end of December. I get a phone call from Abeera and she's like, Ayesha, I want to start a podcast. And here's the thing. At first, I fully thought Abeera wanted to start a podcast herself and was asking me
strong enough.
And was asking me to be a guest, which I was like, hell yeah, for sure. And she was like, oh, no. I want to start a podcast with you. Think about it. Please say no if you want. You know, I want us to be equally committed to this. And I remember being like so afraid. And I think
you're over what you told me. You're like, I'm feeling good feelings, but I'm also feeling overwhelmed.
Like I was so scared. And I remember like loving the fact that we could be so honest with each other.
And I said this to you earlier. I'm like, my therapist friends are my like I love my non-therapist friends too. Let me just put that out there. I feel like I'm going to get slandered if I like, no, I love my therapist friends for the reason that I feel like I don't need to like go out of my way to get respect and I don't have to over explain. Like there's just like a lot of like empathy that's like, just like already there.
Right. Because I feel like we understand the value of like transparency and me being like, hey, like, I don't want to give you any false expectations that I'm like willing to do this. Like, I'm not going to give you a strong yes. I can tell you like, hey, I'm like feeling really excited and positive towards this. I am also afraid and have all these like apprehensions and concerns. And Abeera was like, please keep telling me anything that's coming up. Cause I would rather know than find out like halfway through or like have you back out because you realize this isn't for you.
Sure.
And so just a little like what the start of this kind of looked like.
Yeah.
And now to be at a point where we're wrapping up our first season, I'm just like,
I know.
How did we get here?
I know. And like, guys, we want to do so much more too. So like, I know that you've been so supportive and we are so grateful for that. But if you have a friend that hasn't heard about this podcast, like talk about it. And like, we want to get guests on here. I know I've said it before, like, but I don't know. I have big dreams.
It's really hard to kind of, escalate in our process without like the continued support of you all. And
the numbers mean a lot.
Really, like just don't get it twisted. Oh my God.
Yeah, Ouija supports the podcast. And if you don't support us, at least support Ouija.
Please.
Our toothless cat, because he got all his teeth extracted. Yeah.
If I ever need
GoFundMe. Via YouTube subscribers.
Yeah, totally.
But
like literally every view, every like, follow, subscription, like everything helps us so much. On our Instagram, like if you reshare our reels, if you even like them, comment, like it really helps us more than you know. And it gives us the validation that the work we're putting into it behind the scenes is like having the impact and people are actually seeing it. So thank you, all of you all who already do all those wonderful things for us.
Seriously.
Yeah, it means the world and it makes it so that our little podcasting dream continues to come true.
Exactly. Do we want to go into...
Yeah.
I think being a whale episode again. Talking.
Oh my God, if you haven't seen our Girl Are You Okay episode, please do. It's freaking wild.
Yeah, if you don't like, I mean, sometimes like mental health is great, right? But also sometimes you just like need to have like fun. So
yeah,
we have a little bit of everything for you guys.
Yeah, I think we can wrap up with this topic. I think it's like worth noting because it's relevant to people.
Okay, yeah, we have one more thing to say about the therapy stuff and then we'll go into a quick tarot.
Yeah.
To end our season 1.
This is so crazy. Okay.
The last thing we're going to talk about is a nod to self-care via why therapy sessions are only 50 minutes long typically.
Yeah. Like, have you ever been in therapy? It hits what? 3:47 or whatever. And suddenly your therapist is like wrapping up and you're totally like, what?
Yeah, like I have 3 more minutes left. And also maybe I have a little bit more time. Like I can like get in a couple more sentences.
And so we're here to kind of explain to you why therapists will end at the 50-minute mark. As disappointing as it is, trust me, I know I've been there.
Yeah.
And
I think like also I just want to say like at least in my personal therapy that I've noticed, and then also in like my therapy with my clients, like typically I do go overtime.
Yeah, same.
And sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's not, like, you know, and I think that it does create some blurry lines.
Yeah, because I think this is another maybe misconception about therapy, that you will always leave therapy feeling good, like everything's wrapped up in a nice, neat bow, and that your therapist will like send you happily on your way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times I know in my own experience that I sometimes feel worse after therapy.
Because like maybe it's something like unfinished.
Something unfinished or something that got brought up that felt heavy, and it just kind of
like that's
affects
how you ended
my mood the rest of the day, or it's something that's on my mind during that week after the fact. And just to kind of like normalize that too. And sorry, Ouija just meowed and it was so cute. I'm so sorry.
But yeah, no, I think like during those 50 minutes, like this is typically why if you do see us wrapping up, this is what we usually do and / need to do during that time. I think the first thing is like the main thing that insurance companies I know keep in mind is it's for notes.
Mm-hmm.
So after we wrap up our session, they bill for like the 60 minutes because they know that therapists will typically take some time after the session to write the progress note.
And even if it's like not even immediately after session, like your therapist will be taking the time to like think about your case, to kind of write your clinical documentation and get that all set, you know?
But beyond that, because like Ayesha said, like sometimes you won't get to it. I know for me, that's my pee time.
Yeah. Because here's the thing.
I don't know why I said it like that.
No, it's
that's my number one going time.
Because you have to understand, you guys, like most of the time we're not ending at the 50-minute mark. I mean, in a perfect world we are, but consistently, I don't think so. And so like, think about it. It's like 55. We have another client at the next hour mark. And so we have like 5 to 10 minutes to use the bathroom, get some of our basic needs met. I know sometimes I need to just stand up.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Because
or like stand outside for some fresh air.
And it's like we have just minutes to get this in, this like a little reset, reground ourselves. Like sometimes
we're on mentally for 50 minutes straight, and then we have to be on mentally again for another 50 minutes after. Sometimes we just need to shut off for like a second.
The vibe switch person to person can even be so like drastic and exhausting, not because the people are draining, but it's so hard to kind of energetically switch.
Like code switching kind of in a way, like for lack of a better word. But yeah. And then also, sometimes like you just need to get like a glass of water, or like you do need to just like decompress on like social media and like
have a little escape,
or like text people back.
So I think we're bringing this up because we wanted to have a little bit of a takeaway for you all. And I think we have somewhat learned to master a quick self-care routine for ourselves that I think all of us can incorporate into our work days, regardless of what it is that you do. And so
it's almost that thing of like, look how much you can get done in 10 minutes. Let's think about it that way, where it's like, self-care is like so jarring because it's like, I don't have time in my day for it. Well, honey, we can do this much in 10 minutes, so can you.
Right. So think about it. You're at work. You're starting to feel like really burnt out, exhausted. You're just really tired. Like, get up and go get a snack.
Yeah.
Use the bathroom. Like, I will fully splash my face with water, or just kind of, even I'll brush my hair. Something about that like helps me feel better. And
spray some perfume just like for like a
sensory.
Go
also, outside.
I'm going to expose Ayesha real quick. When we were like kind of prepping for this, she goes, I've learned how to poop in 2 minutes or less.
It's true, you guys. The way I have to poop so quickly, Because here's another thing. It's really important to me that I'm on time for my
I know. I remember one
sessions.
time we had a meeting and you're like, Abeera, it's 3:00. Like, don't you have to go? Like, your session's starting right now. I'm like, yeah, I'll log on at 3:01. I go over anyway.
I was so stressed. It was so funny. It was so interesting to get that like varying perspective.
Yeah.
Because
especially from someone with anxiety over this stuff usually.
Right. And I know. I know.
You're like, this is weird. Like,
and it just highlights the fact that being a therapist is such an isolating job. Because I think in other professions, you have other people like witnessing or overlooking the work that you're doing. But in reality, for us, it's just us with the client and there's no one else seeing what's happening. So there's no one to be like, hey, good job, or you're doing great. Or when you said that was really amazing, unless your client shares that with you.
And you can't expect that.
Right.
Yeah.
I will say this, my work started sending out these surveys, which is kind of scary.
Oh, for like the therapy, like alliance form or something like that, where they kind of like give like their feedback on you.
Yeah, that's part of it. It's mostly so that we can start applying for some grants. So it's kind of tracking.
Oh.
But yeah, there is a little like feedback section about me specifically. I know being a nonprofit is hard though, because we don't get a lot of funding.
I guess that's not like technically capitalism.
Yeah, we all work under it though. But regardless, I bring this up because some of my clients wrote feedback about me and it got forward. Only 2 got forwarded.
Do you get to
me.
see?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I literally like couldn't believe it because like both of them, like the ones they picked to show me, were like, we've been working with Ayesha for years and like thank you so much for like connecting me with her. And it was just such an out of body experience being able to read it. Just
That's
like,
awesome.
Oh my God. Like, yeah.
I want that.
I was like, this is everything I'm needing.
Just so fun.
So tell your therapist if they're doing good, share. And if they're not, tell them too, right? If something's not working for you, please tell us because we'd rather make adjustments and changes in service of you. We will not take it personally.
And
I promise.
It's, at the end of the day, like it is a service, right?
Yeah.
Like you're paying for this, even if it's your insurance, like whatever. Like this is something that you're putting your money towards. You deserve to have something that aligns well with you and that is actually helping you.
And it's tailored. Like every client session looks different.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I'm in some way a different therapist for every client I see to a certain degree.
Great.
You know?
Well, anything else to add to the self-care piece? I mean, we kind of listed like what we get done during that time. So I wonder if we can leave with you, like figure out what it is that revives you.
Yeah.
And put that into like a 5-10 minute break throughout the day, like a few of them.
Like make sure your basic needs are met.
Yeah.
Have you drink some water, use the bathroom, eat a little snack, text a friend, a loved one, a family member, get a little like social support, stretch, walk around, take a lap,
outside, get some sun.
Get some sunlight. And, I think it can be as simple as that. Do a quick little task that makes life easier for future you.
Yeah. Oh my God. I was going to say like my like little ritual that I do is when I'm like feeling like kind of like drained, I'll like find like a piece of chocolate.
Yeah.
And it's just like exciting because it's like
serotonin boost.
I was like, okay, I'm about to go into session. Let me have a little chocolate first. And that's been really nice.
Yeah.
But do you have something like that?
I think I started eating more like gummy worms.
Ooh, fun. Okay. So like a sweet treat.
And it's so fun.
Yeah.
I love it.
Nice. I love that. So yeah, even if it's a sweet treat, guys, if that gives you a little bit of break. I mean, how many times have we talked about, or not in here, but like as therapists, like talked about how like a sour candy helps with like panic attacks, right?
Yeah.
So like blame it on that.
Right? Like even like I've heard like eating a peppercorn too.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Which I'm sure is not as pleasant.
No, but maybe for the savory folks out there.
Barely, that's just so strong.
Yeah.
But yeah, it kind of gives you a different sensory overload in a way that maybe is more bearable.
It'll wake you up.
So
yeah.
Take care of yourselves. Go to therapy.
Do a little something for yourself, even if it's just for like a minute.
Oh my God, imagine if I was wearing my I Heart My Therapist shirt today.
Oh, Missed opportunity.
I wore it on a previous episode. Go watch it.
Oh, I could have worn my going to therapy is cool sweatshirt.
Yeah.
Guys.
We're
do
so
this again.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's do tarot.
Tarot time.
Okay, cool. Now we're back. We're
All
gonna
right.
do some of the card shuffle.
Yes.
Here, I'll
Gav's
pass it
going
to
to
you.
shuffle. I'm going to hold his microphone for him and narrate. He is giving a beautiful shuffle. I love the strategy here. It seems very efficient. Oh, and he's going for a double. Whoa. He's got moves. Okay. I see this isn't your first time.
I have to try to get this so like the card falls. There it is.
Oh, and we have an ejection. It looks a little bit. Ooh, pick a card. I'm going to say the one in the middle.
Okay, go for it, bro.
Skirt.
Love it.
Oh.
I didn't realize I just
Scary.
associated. Yeah.
It looks like some sort of eel.
It is.
You
can read
want to?
it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So it's an eel. I'll put it right here. Abeera will take a photo of it and put it up because she's such a fantastic editor. Number 41, convey your meaning. Reflect on the way you communicate with others. Because they're therapy and like
Wait,
you know what I mean?
communicating right now.
Oh,
Wait, let me reflect on this.
Holy shit. Let me finish the sentence. I'm just kidding. Reflect on the way you communicate with others and with yourself. Be sure to express your thoughts and feelings from your heart and with respect and sincerity. Oh my God, we were talking about this. No, that's crazy.
Actually crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
For the final episode, having reflect on the communication.
Oh my gosh.
Bro.
For a potential season 2 sesh? That's dope, dude.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's much more to it, you know. Thoughts and feelings from the heart, I think, is what these two girlies gave us for
They really
15
did.
episodes.
Yeah, 15 episodes
And
straight.
I respect them.
In the
And
sincerest way possible.
yes, sincerely, Eric and Gav. Sincerely serious. Shout out.
Shout out. There's one on
This is a
Van Nuys
good-
Ventura, really good
They got
Syrian
good
place.
shawarma.
Shawarma.
Yum yum yum.
Yeah.
Wait, is that it?
Yum,
wait,
yum,
what
yum,
else do
yum.
they say? Do they generally just tangent on this?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd like ever like be friends with an eel.
Me neither.
Snake
Snake shit. It's
Really?
literally just a water snake. So.
Yeah, dude, but it's so much uglier than
Oh,
a snake.
dude, don't we have like what's it called from that Hogwarts shit?
What? Oh, the birdie bots?
No. What's the house? the green snake house.
Oh, Slytherin.
Slytherin. We got a Slytherin here.
Bro, 2 Slytherins.
Oh shit, boy.
Yeah, y'all voted her as a something else, but she is Slytherin.
Snake is hell.
She just
spit at you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was season 1 of Girl, Are You Okay? Many more seasons to come.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
If you guys liked it, we might make another cameo, but
Don't ask for me.
we will not take the Starbright, first star I see tonight,
I
away
like
from
being-
them.
I like being behind the camera.
It's very funny to see them from this perspective.
It is.
But,
I feel like a main character for
We
once.
will see you guys in a month, maybe less. Season 2.
Season 2,
We'll see you
whenever
guys
that
on
comes
season
out.
2. We're very excited.
Correct. Super excited.
I can't wait. They are really just getting better and better every time.
Love you.
Bye.
Mwah,
Love
mwah,
you.
mwah, mwah. Toodles.
Although we cover themes of mental health, Girl, Are You Okay is not a substitute for therapy or mental health services. Also, thank you to our co-producers, Gav and Eric.